Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. It is my pleasure today to have Justin Gagnon. I might have butchered that, so sorry, Justin. On the program, Justin is VP of Business Development at Whill. So let's talk about Whill, and then I want to go back and start on your background. What is Whill?
Sure. Well, we're a mobility device manufacturer. So a very innovative company when it comes to mobility equipment, power wheelchairs, scooters, that type of stuff. And we're also getting into more mobility as a service areas as well. We have an autonomous solution that we're now launching at some airports, which is really exciting, and getting into other venues just to provide, short-term rentals of mobility equipment for folks that just need, a little help, a little extra help getting around big, large venues.
Yeah, and mobility is such an issue with not just what we think of as elderly people who might have mobility issues, but people of all ages and abilities, right? I don't want to say disabled. So will you please talk about how did Whill get started and what was the impetus behind it? And then what was the impetus behind the product expansion? And I'd love to hear more about the work that you're doing in airports and with venues.
Sure. Yeah, really great sort of founding story. Our founder and CEO, Satoshi, started the company in Tokyo, in Japan. He had a friend who was losing his mobility, got to the point where at one point he told Sugie he's having trouble even getting to the grocery store, which is only a couple blocks away for him. So Sugie decided, let's try to help you. Well, let's try to find a piece of mobility equipment that can get you out and sort of give you that freedom and independence that you're used to. So they went out to find a product and they couldn't find something that worked for him, that worked both, he had a small apartment in Tokyo, so something that could fit in tight spaces, but also allowed him to get outdoors and be a pretty active lifestyle, social guy, wanted to, continue to get out. Then they couldn't find anything. So Sugie took it upon himself to just build something. Yeah, so Sugie at the time, he was an automotive engineer and designer, so understood the hardware side of it, and the design aspect was really important for him too. He wanted to create something that looked good. Had a couple of friends that were working for large electronics companies in Japan at the time as well, so they kind of joined forces, and the three of them together created really what became the first prototype for Whill for their friend. He started using it. It worked great for him. It gave him back his freedom and his independence, newfound confidence. And so they decided this is a great product and something that we could sell. And they were encouraged by, people around them to start a business around it. So they started the company. This would have been back in like the early 2011, 2012, kind of in that time frame. So it's still a fairly young company. Came over to the US, really got started in California, right in Silicon Valley, got some tech investment and started the company really from there, and then really grew it from there. In 2018, I think is when we really started to hit stride in the North American market. In 2018, we launched our Model CI and launched that at CES in Las Vegas. Big show to launch it at. Got some great accolades. It won a Best in Show Innovation Award at CES. Listed it as one of the best inventions of the year that year. So really cool accolades for that product, and a much lower price point than our original Model A, which was really what that prototype was built off of, and had really great features for both functionality and transportability. It can come apart, and so it's easy to transport and throw into really any vehicle. So for all of those features, it became quite a popular product, and it looks great, and people really love the design of it as well. And so that's when we really started to hit our stride in the North American market specifically. Yeah, and then since then, it's been, continuing to innovate. From the Model CI, we now have our Model C2. So just listening to feedback from our end users, a few new features that just provide a little bit easier use, expanding our market a little bit too, allow more people to be able to use that device. We now have a Model F, which is a foldable chair. So just a little bit of a lighter weight chair, lighter usage, but again, great for travel, great for transportability. And then in 2019, we launched our autonomous service and our autonomous technology, which is really cool. And that's what we've been launching at airports as well. And so that one we launched at CES in 2019, again, won a Best in Show Innovation Award. So great accolades there again. And that device really allows us to go into a venue like an airport. We map out the entire airport. We'll create routes for that chair to follow. And then a passenger who requires some mobility assistance at the airport simply selects what gate they need to be, transported to, and it'll just automatically drive them to that gate. Once they arrive, they'll get out, they'll grab their luggage, make sure they have all their belongings, and then our device will self-return back to a staging area to pick up another passenger. It's a really cool product to see in use. Turns a lot of heads. It looks like, what is this robotic wheelchair just kind of traveling its own through an airport? But yeah, getting a lot more interest. We're up and running in a few airports in Japan already. We have one airport in Canada, in Winnipeg, that's currently up and running with autonomous service there. And very soon we'll have some announcements coming for some fairly large hub airports in North America and in the US that are going to be launching that service as well.
But you answered my next question. I usually start out without talking about your story and your journey into your field, right? But for me, I really wanted to start with Whill because I have a lot of personal connections to this. I have a sister-in-law who is what in most common vernacular would be called a little person. She has some degenerative bone disorders that she was born with. And so she has a shorter stature and a brand new baby nephew. And she walks around with a crutch. She has mobility issues normally. And then after childbirth, of course, even more so. So I look at this as like, wow, this is a solution that would be really great for my family. Then I also know, of course, a filmmaker, because I'm in LA, who has just done a film that had actors of different abilities as the main characters, and not because of their lack of ability or because they were differently abled, maybe missing a limb, have to get around in a wheelchair, but because it was a character arc, right? So it wasn't about their lack or their different ability. It was about who they were, and they just happened to be differently abled. And so I see this as something that people are becoming more and more comfortable talking about and realizing, wow, we need to help everybody have a better quality of life. So I got really excited when I knew we were going to have this conversation today to really unpack for the audience how innovations start. And that's usually where an entrepreneur starts, right? With this idea, they're trying to solve something for themselves or for someone they love or is close to them. And then they don't even know what it's going to become from there. But look at what you all are doing today.
It's a really inspiring company to work for and a great industry to be a part of, because just like what you said, like we're working on products to help provide people with a new sense of independence and a new sense of freedom and a new sense of confidence that they otherwise wouldn't have. So yeah, it's a really great company to be a part of for all of those reasons.
Now, you have experience in business development for a number of other companies and on the investment side. So what was your career path like to get into working for Whill? And I have to ask a totally separate question. Is Whill an acronym?
You know what? It isn't.
Okay.
It's fun. We get asked that question all the time. Yeah, no, Sugie came up with it on his own. He just thought it flowed really great. The logo, if you look at the logo, is actually inspired by the look of sort of birds flying into the horizon, and then having that sense of freedom is what we're looking to provide. So that's where the logo comes from. Yeah, but my story, so yeah, I kind of fell backwards into it, to be completely frank. I was recruited for the role and didn't really know anything about the company, didn't really know anything about the industry. But yeah, they were looking for somebody with my sort of more diverse background in business development and trying to get sort of new products into market and that kind of a thing. To be completely honest too, I was a little bit hesitant when the recruiter first approached me about it. They were hesitant to even tell me what industry it was in. They said it was a young tech startup company, very innovative, very exciting, based in Silicon Valley. It was just an exciting company to work for and lots of growth potential.
Every company in Silicon Valley says that. So you know which one is true.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And then they were hesitant to tell me what industry. And they said, you know what, Justin, why don't you come in and meet with us? I'm sure when we tell you the whole story, you'll be excited about the opportunity. And so they did. So I went in and met with them, and sure thing, they went through the whole story with me, told me Sugie's story, which I just shared with you, which was inspiring. I enjoyed the role that I was currently with. I was working with a marketing agency at the time and working with a handful of different companies that were fun to work with. So it's not like I was looking to make a move But the recruiter convinced me to meet with Sugie and to meet with founders of Scoot Around, which is the North American company here that Whill has since acquired. So I met with Sugie and a couple of other executives, and just found that they were so passionate, inspiring, so excited about what they were doing that they won me over. So I decided to take the job. I was still, to be completely honest, I was still a little bit like, I don't know if this is going to be the right move for me. It's a new whole, different thing that I haven't been into before. And before I even started, they asked if I would go to an Abilities Expo. So at Whill, we attend Abilities Expos across the US. They typically flow through a weekend. Most major markets will have one. I think there's 10 or 11 throughout the country and throughout the year. And the weekend before I was set to start, there was an Abilities Expo in the New York area. So I went down to New York and I went to the Abilities Expo, and it was sort of my first introduction into the company, into the market. I'd say 1 hour in to the first day at the expo, I felt like, yes, I'm in the right spot. Like, this is a really cool company to work for. And just seeing, we had, users who were already customers of ours would come by our booth and tell us how excited they were about having Whill products. And then we had folks that were, looking for a new piece of mobility equipment that would come to our booth, and you could just see their demeanor would completely change as soon as they sat in our chair and drove it around a little bit. They would just, you just saw their confidence level change and their excitement about the product. And they were asking us to take pictures of them. And yeah, it's just a really cool story to be a part of. Yeah, so they won me over pretty quick, I would say, at that point.
And I think that's one of the things that's important for people to realize, whether you're going into entrepreneurship or you're working at a company, you get recruited by another company, to be open to the possibility, right? You might be going along just fine and be happy with where you're at. And then an opportunity like this presents itself where you might love what you're doing, but you have the opportunity to be part of something that can be so big and can impact so many people's lives in front of your eyes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And my last job was great. It was a lot of fun. Everything you think a marketing agency would be. Got to experience an account director and working with some really great companies. But I was working with a large bank, and we were doing, campaigns for credit cards and mortgages and banking products, but not quite as inspiring as products that provide people with, freedom in mobility. And yeah, just feel like we're making a much bigger impact on an individual level.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you've talked through some of the differentiators that the product will. And by the way, to our listeners, it's WHILL. If you want to look it up, we'll also have that in the show notes so that you can learn more about the product lines. I would love to hear more about what are some of the other differentiators. You mentioned Scoot Around, and now Whill has acquired Scoot Around, so that was clearly somebody else in the market that was doing something that y'all like. And you talked a little bit about how you have a foldable chair, you're creating autonomous technology, price points might be a little different. So what are some of the other ways that you're helping change and impact this market? Because I can't imagine that there was a lot of innovation going into the mobility space when Whill came out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was really the big focus for Sugie when he was, first developing the original prototype. The different models that followed was design has always been a really big feature of ours that we wanted to make sure we focused on. We wanted something that looked good and that people felt like they looked good in. So that was really important for us, that I think a lot of more traditional power wheelchairs that we see in the market, that really wasn't a focus. The focus has always just really been functionality. So yeah, so design, look and feel was really important for us. And innovation in technology was really important for us as well. And I think that was one area too that the market was lacking a bit, especially in North America. I mean, Sugie had some great slides when I first started with the company as well. I've been with Whill for about 5.5 years now. And so when I first joined, he had a great slide that would show, this is what a telephone looked like in 1960, and this is what a telephone looks like today. And I had a few sort of comparable slides like that, and then would show, this is what a wheelchair looked like in 1960, and this is what a wheelchair looks like today, and they're almost identical. Really showing that there has been very little innovation in this space for several reasons over the last, 40, 50 years, and looking to change that. And so when, we came out with our Omni wheels, a really cool piece of technology that allows our chairs to not only get into really tight spaces, but handle rougher terrains and allows people to get outdoors a lot easier with the same chair that they can use in their house. The app connectivity is one thing that was very unique for us as well. We have an app that connects to our chairs so that people can drive their chair remotely, like a remote control car. Allows for a little more independence that way as well. But even just monitoring your battery health and seeing, what kind of range you have left on your battery. There's different speed controls that you can do through there. You can lock it and unlock it. There's a bunch of different features that you can tap into using our app as well. And we're now that we've been in the market and specifically in the North American market, since really 2018 with the CI and even previous to that with our Model A, we're now seeing a lot of other manufacturers. So it's great to see. I think there has been a bit of a shift in the market. Innovation and connectivity, all of that stuff is becoming more and more of a standard feature, I would say, for products, which is great. It just sort of opens up the possibilities for people that need these types of tools.
Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Join the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs program. Learn how to build, elevate, and amplify your brand with a comprehensive 10-module course. Learn more about it and other ways to implement our strategies at fullcapacitymarketing.com. Click on EFCM Learning Hub for more information. Can't wait to help you amplify your brand. I love that your innovations are creating market innovations across the board with other companies. That is, I think, the ultimate, right? How else can you say that you are the standard bearer now? And because of the heart and the care you've put into creating really great products, everybody else has to now follow you and innovate.
Yeah, exactly. And now with our autonomous technology, we're kind of seeing the same thing. I think we're really the first out of the gate when it comes to having a commercially full autonomous wheelchair. We're now seeing others start to enter that market. More of them it's interesting. More of them seem to be coming from the autonomous technology side and taking that technology and attaching it to wheelchairs. Yeah, so I would say, we're a couple of years out in front of other companies that are coming into that space. And again, sort of being the leader of that technology and going through all the learnings as well, being able to understand, what needs to get from one end of an airport to another, or from one end of a hospital to another, or big convention centers, or wherever they are, what, specific features are they going to be looking for? And so through the trials that we've ran and the pilot programs and now having, devices permanently in some of these spaces, being able to take those learnings and continuing to adapt and continuing to add new features. Yeah, it's cool to be a part of it, to be on that forefront of the new technologies is really neat.
Yeah. Well, so there's been success in Silicon Valley at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and you talked about going to abilities conferences. What are some of the other ways that you directly reach your ideal customers, or whether it's the big venue or airport or the individual consumer?
Sure. Well, when it comes to the individual consumer, everything that you mentioned, we go to these abilities expos. We find a lot of our customers go to those shows. Online, we do some online advertising. We have some influencers on social that will help promote our products as well and tell their stories, which, a lot of them are really inspirational as well. And the difference that, using our products has made in their lives, which is really, great stories to hear. We love hearing those stories. And we have a distribution network. So we do have dealers across the country that sell our products as well. So if somebody recognizes, I'm going to need some help, I'm going to need some type of a piece of mobility equipment, I'm going to go to my local shop that sells scooters and wheelchairs. We are in a lot of those today as well. So a lot of folks can find us locally. On the other side of our business, like on the mobility services, the autonomous side, we're reaching out directly. The aviation industry, especially, although there's an airport in every market in the country, it's a pretty tight network. Most everybody knows everybody type of a network. A lot of the folks in that industry have been in that industry their entire careers. So once you start to build a rapport with somebody, it doesn't take long for news to spread and that we're in the space. So Yeah, we've had conversations with pretty well every major airline in the US. We've been in demonstrations and pilot programs and trials at a lot of the major airports and even secondary market airports throughout the US as well. We also go to industry shows, to aviation shows. We're going to be at the Future Travel Experience show next week in Long Beach. So we do a few of those every year as well. And then even just reaching out, like we're just finalizing a contract with a zoo in Florida. We're in some other venues, the Desert Botanical Gardens in Phoenix. You can rent our products there. So, different venues that, people are going to be visiting and need to be on their feet and traversing, a fairly significant distance in order to enjoy that venue. Trying to get into more and more of those and provide our products there for people to just utilize for the day or for a few hours, however long that they're going to need that assistance.
Yeah. I love that you have multiple strategies. I think this is so important these days because while you have influencers and you do digital marketing and advertising, it sounds like this is also a product where people feel and experience that change when they get to actually sit in the seat or see, your pilot programs or your testing in action. And so that's something that I think we're seeing a lot more of. We were at home for several years or parts of years, depending on where you live. And people miss those experiences of being able to feel and touch and see things and have that human interaction in person as well. So I love that you have strategies across the board and are really integrated.
Yeah, for sure. We knew from the beginning, I think, one of the challenges that we've had with our products is because they are so unique, the adoption has been a little bit slower than if it was, just a standard power chair that everybody would expect or a standard scooter that everybody is used to. Because it is a little bit different, we do encourage those test drives. Devices that people drive on their own with a joystick, it's very intuitive. We find even people in some of these venues that don't use a device on their own sort of daily basis, but just need one to get around a large convention center, sit down in it. And there's definitely a little bit of hesitation at first, but it usually takes 15, 30 seconds, a minute tops, and they're, feel like they have full confidence that they can utilize that chair. So we definitely do want to encourage test drives as much as possible and make them available for folks to try as much as possible. The more dealers that we're in where people can actually go in and sit, like you said, sit down, touch and feel, take it for a bit of a ride, even go out into the parking lot and find some grass to drive around on, see what that feels like. We definitely encourage all of that. We have some dealers that will have almost like a test track right within their store. So they drive up and down bumps and ramps and different, on rocks and cobblestone type feel. So you can feel how our chair would react versus some of the other devices that they would also be selling. So yeah, I would definitely encourage folk to try it first, make sure it's comfortable for them and something that they can see themselves using on an ongoing basis.
And some of that sounds very similar to automotive, which was the basis for the company to begin with. Because I think about how Land Rover will have a little bit of rocks or something bumpy for people to drive over in their display in front of their store, and other car dealers will have similar things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, and some of our dealers are really great at it too. They'll even take our chair and bring it to their home to say, if you really want to know what it's going to be like to use it on a day-to-day basis, let's use it where you're going to use it. So, sometimes they'll meet at a park and, this is the park where I walk my dog. Like, okay, well, let's take your dog for a walk and let's see how that goes. So being able to use it as you would in your daily life, I think is really important. And then we do the same, like I said, when we go into these airport opportunities or other venues, we'll often run either a trial program or a proof of concept program, or at least do a demo day type of a thing where we'll operate with, whether it's the autonomous equipment or, self-driven equipment. Yeah, where you can see it interact with people in that venue, how it's going to work right in that space. I think it's really important for folks to see how that's going to work, and makes the adoption process just that much faster.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Japanese market, the North American market, Canada and US. What about other countries? Because I know that mobility is an issue for people all over the world. I know there are also a lot of nonprofits that try to help people in developing countries get access to mobility through wheelchairs and other means. So are you exploring some of those other markets that might not be as profitable, but are there where there's still great need? Are you coming out with specific lines for those countries? What does that look like if you are able to share?
Sure. So today we're in a few Asian markets. So Japan, obviously that's where we started. That's where our headquarters is. That's been a really key market for us. Really quick adoption in Japan for technology. I think our core focus globally right now is the North American market. Definitely a lot of growth potential, a lot of need, obviously very large market that we're focused on right now on both sides of our business, on sort of that consumer sales side as well as on the mobility services side. We are in Europe. We do have an office in Amsterdam. We're expanding through several countries in Europe. France has become a really big market for us in Europe right now. And that's where we are today. I think, talking about future markets and other areas of need is definitely something that we've talked about. We want to make products, like even our products today, we want to make them so that they provide as much flexibility and freedom for people as possible. So when you talk about some rougher terrains, in countries where we don't have the same type of rules like we do in the US with the ADA, laws around access to buildings and things like that, how can we create a product that, even if those rules aren't in place, have, still provide people with access and ability to get out and get into some of those venues? It's definitely on the roadmap. In terms of timing, not exactly sure. Still a fairly young new company, making strides in the markets we're in, and definitely looking to expand globally over the years.
Fantastic. So I'd love to hear, what are some ways that if we don't have mobility issues, but we want to help advocate and be allies for people who do, what are some ways that we as listeners or viewers can help?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I know that there's a ton of associations that you can definitely be part of, whether it's for, a specific disease or a specific disability. That, there's tons out there. I find most people really get involved in those if they have some type of a personal connection, whether it's a loved one or themselves personally, that are affected. And so, but even if not, I think definitely take a look. And I'm sure at this point, everybody knows some way or another that is affected. And so getting involved in any of those types of different charitable associations is a great way to start. I think one thing, I travel a ton, and being a traveler and just seeing and experiencing now, I've traveled with a C2 and a CI myself personally, just to kind of get that experience. Like, how are our customers experiencing airports today? What is that like? So I traveled quite a bit with a Model CI when I first started working with Whill, and it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And just the way that you're treated, I found most people are quite polite, and they're willing to hold doors open, and they're willing to grab something for you or help you with your bag, things like that. But a lot of people aren't. So I think one of the things we can all do is just be kind and respectful and helpful, just offer to help. And they might not need help, and that's okay too. In a lot of these large venues too, it's interesting now to find, as an able-bodied person walking through an airport, it's something we don't even think about. Like, I don't have to pre-plan when I go on a trip. I just figure it out when I get to that airport. I follow the signs, and it's easy, and I grab an Uber and off I go to the hotel and get to the hotel, and every room is accessible for me. So it's something that I have never really previously considered. And now working in the space, finding an elevator in an airport is sometimes challenging, and it's way out of the way, and it takes you an extra 5 or 10 minutes. Waiting for your wheelchair when you get to your destination takes an extra 15, 20 minutes. Getting a accessible Uber sometimes takes a little bit longer, or an accessible shuttle to your hotel. And accessible rooms at your hotel are sometimes harder to find and aren't as accessible as you would hope they are. So I think in all of those cases, it's just a matter of continuing to advocate to create spaces that are accessible to everybody. Our mission and vision at Whill is to create freedom and fun mobility for all. And so just in all spaces, something that people just shouldn't have to think about or plan for, no matter what level of ability you have.
Wonderful. This is really exciting. I'm thinking about all these people who I need to share Whill with now. And I wanted to ask Justin, do you have any last words of advice or wisdom for people who are either entrepreneurs, getting the tech space, creating products in business development, and maybe are at that point where they love what they are doing, but they have an opportunity to do something new that they wouldn't have, experienced or anticipated.
Sure. I think you said it when we were first talking. Being open-minded and open to new ideas is always something that we should always be. I think it's just being willing to listen and hear out other opportunities that are out there. The big impetus to move into this sort of new career path was the people. Like, the people behind the product was really the big inspiration for me. We're all in it for the right reasons. We are a business for sure, but at the end of the day, we're in the business of trying to help people and really make quite an impact on people's lives for all the right reasons. And hearing that coming out of the mouths of our founders and senior leadership teams, I think that's really what convinced me to make that move. Yeah. So I think if you have that passion and that excitement around what you're doing, then the people that are leading the company are in that same headspace. I think that's really what I would look for.
Well, thank you. And do you have a quote or a mantra or some words of wisdom that you live by? I see something in your background. Let's do something about it. I don't know if that's the one or if you have another one you'd like to share.
Well, that's a fun one. That one was actually, I go to a gym, and both my wife and I, our gym instructor for the day, I guess he was talking about, people were complaining about whatever muscle area wasn't working for them. And he said, so let's do something about it, and designed a workout for us to really focus on that area. And I think both of us were like, yeah, that's a good quote. Let's just do something about it. And so there's a few business quotes that are kind of in that same realm that I often will go back to. I think the bigger mantra for me, I'm probably not going to get this right up. People don't remember what you said and they don't remember what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. I think that was Maya Angelou. And so I think that's always been a big mantra for me, very applicable to the space and the company that I'm working for today. When we talk about all those cool features that we mentioned, the innovation and the Omni wheels and all that kind of stuff, that's all great. But really at the end of the day, it's the sense of confidence and that sense of independence and that sense of freedom. That's really what we're focused on. And yeah, so that's always just been a great inspirational quote that I've referred to quite a bit.
Yeah. And that's a great note to end on. Those are very wise words. Justin, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about your journey and a lot about Whill and this innovation in so many ways that's changing lives all over Asia, Europe, North America, and soon the globe. Thank you to our audience for listening. I know this has been a great brand distillation for your brand Amplified. I'm Annika Jackson. I'll be back in a few days with another amazing expert distilling a brand for us and all of the things that we need to think about when we're looking at launching one or moving over to a new company. And with that, I'll bid you adieu. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.